Aurora Mayor Mike Coffman, we're here to talk about the ballot issue that just qualified for the November ballot that would change Aurora's form of government from a mayor with a city manager that has more power to a mayor who pretty much has all the power, kind of like Denver, hiring and firing decisions, veto power. What was your involvement in getting this on the ballot?
Oh, I was involved early on in researching it, in talking to different people about what the best course of action would be in Denver and Colorado Springs. So I think they both gave me good pointers, and as well as community leaders in the city. But I certainly initiated the process.
If you initiated it and you were involved early on, how come when we asked while signatures were being collected for input, for comment from you, your response was, I will comment if and when it makes the ballot? Why were you avoiding transparency?
Well, I just think that it's, in hindsight, who knows, but I felt that it's not about transparency. It was about, to me, it wasn't an issue until it made the ballot. So I have to, it's hard for me because I have to focus on my own campaign for mayor. And then there's this issue. And so that was the decision that I made at that time.
Why have two other people of the city go through the process of getting their names attached to it to get it on the ballot? Why aren't you front and center saying, this is my petition, I want Aurora to have a strong mayor, and I'm also running for mayor, so this would impact my next term, but I just want you to know,
sure,
me, Mike Coffman, wants this change.
Well, I'd made a decision that it wasn't an issue until it made the ballot. That was a decision that I made, and so I'm certainly free to comment on it now in terms of what my position is and why I think it's important for the city to take this direction.
How about the claims of people who signed the petitions that say they were misled by only being told it was about term limits? I know the phrasing, if you read the first 3 lines, you see term limits. If you read the next, I think it's 5 or 6 lines, it's about changing the power of government. What do you have to say about the people who feel they were misled into signing something they didn't know they were really signing?
Well, I'm certainly sorry if they felt that way. I think that nothing, I think precludes one's responsibility to read the ballot language. I mean, there was, I think the whole ballot language is about 130 words, but there is a summary of it that's approved by the clerk's office. And so I know we're going to be debating, Mayor Pro Tem has a proposal that says if people are misled, that there should be sanctions. I agree with the first part. I just want to add something to the second part. And the individual, the circulator, refused to provide that information about the summary that, again, is approved by the clerk. So, I mean, at the end of the day, there's got to be some responsibility on whoever signs it. I mean, I don't sign petitions unless I read the summary.
Did you sign this petition?
Yes, I did.
How were you approached about signing the petition? Or did you just sign like line 1 and then say?
Oh, outside of a post office.
And how was it sold to? Did you come up as like, I'm average Joe citizen, and did they tell you? What did they tell you?
That it was about 2 things. That it was about term limits. That was the first thing they mentioned. And that it was about changing the structure of government in Aurora.
We won't see any campaign finance about this until end of next week,
August
I think?
5th.
Who's behind this? Who's spending money?
Certainly I've contributed, and there are others, entities that have contributed, and that will show up on August 5th.
How much have you contributed?
No, I'm not going to say.
We're going to know in a week.
That's strategy, I'm not going to say.
If it's going to be on a document in a week, what's it matter?
No.
Okay, again, transparency. I talked with Curtis Gardner, and he said one of the efforts by the yes people, so you, are trying to tell people we need more transparency and accountability in government. That's why we need a strong mayor system. How is this transparency avoiding answering simple questions like, were you involved and how much have you contributed?
Right, well, I've already said that I was involved. But I think the fundamental issue, I'd say, look, when this is on the ballot and there's still some things that have to go through, then it's, instead of, well, how did we get here? We're here, let's debate the issue. And to me, the issue is that the city of Aurora has grown to the extent it is the 51st largest city in America with the urban problems, urban challenges of race, poverty, and crime. And in my view, and the people will decide this, it no longer fits with the city that this was, where the big issues of the day are all planning and zoning. So I think that having an elected official that is directly accountable to the voters, I think is really important. I think whether you're talking about it, whether it's the behavior of police officers that gets called into question, or whether it's having a vision for the city and the leadership to get us there, those are the kind of things that this proposal brings to the table, as well as, and then particularly talking to people in Colorado Springs and Denver that felt that that 3 4-year terms in a mayor council system was one too many, and in fact, Denver set of council is having that discussion now.
Did you purposefully craft it this way to have multiple subjects, term limits, and the strong mayor system, to sneak in people who would vote for term limits but maybe not want that strong mayor system?
I think the polling shows popularity for term limits, but that it made little difference when you combined it with the mayor council form of government.
What about mayor council by itself?
About the same. About the same.
And I want to be clear, there are term limits. 3 terms, that's a limit currently in Aurora.
Right.
So it's just shrinking how many currently exist.
And I think that's appropriate.
Should this have waited for a new, like when you're no longer eligible for re-election, should this shift to changing how this form of government works be fresh for someone brand new?
Well, I think that I probably would have wanted to wait. But we, and I've been doing research on this, but kind of caught by surprise when the city manager decided to retire, to resign. 5 years is about the average stay for a city manager, and so rather than do it a year or so down the road, when there's a new person there, I felt that the best time was to do it now. And so we had made a decision that the interim would then stay, and that we would make a decision after November, whatever happens in the election with the ballot initiative, as to whether or not, if it doesn't pass, then we'll do the national search.
I've been told the way it's written is that you'd have a chief of staff that if whoever's mayor is incapacitated, that person would become mayor, unelected, appointed.
It's really up to the city council. I mean, they could do it in the same day that the mayor is for whatever reason vacates the office. They can do it in that same day. They can appoint a successor. So in the event that they don't, or they don't, for whatever reason, they can't make a decision, then yes, that person would stay on until they could make a decision. But there's no time requirement that says, oh, he's got to be there for 24 hours. I mean, it's not there. So they can make that decision right away.
Are you trying to create a system where if you're elected mayor again, that you're creating jobs for the good old boys, the people that you're closest to?
Yeah. I don't have that many friends. Look, my intent is to keep everybody here. I think we've got a good leadership team. I think, though, that there is a difference. I mean, none of them live in Aurora, and that's fine, and the senior leaders. But they're all very good and capable people. And so I want the entire leadership team to stay. And the organization. I mean, there are things that I'm going to do differently. First of all, I want to be able to do the budget. I mean, there's so much policy interwoven in the budget. I think it's important that somebody who's directly accountable to the voters be responsible for doing the budget and then giving it to City Council. City Council can always amend it. But I think that's very important. And so, Council has the ability I'm surprised we're not talking about this, or maybe they don't know, but they should read the charter, that they can say, I hope they don't do this right away, but on any day after November, the election, they can literally, with just 6 members, refer it back to the voters. If they're unhappy, if they think I've made the wrong decisions in terms of hiring people, if they think that that in vetoing legislation, in my choice maybe for a certain position that's vacant, they can refer it all or part of it back to the voters. They don't have to go through the entire, this very difficult process of getting over 12,000 signatures. And so they don't even have to wait for another municipal election. So in other words, if they were unhappy at the beginning of next year, they literally could vote and with a simple majority refer it back to the voters. I mean, with language to say, to basically, if I doubt the voters would give them, would take out the term limits, but in terms of the mayor council thing, then it would be language to the effect to say, we're going to reinstitute, simple language, the city manager will have these powers, da 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 da, and it just basically, and the mayor will revert to the position that the mayor had before, largely ceremonial. And so, so that power exists. There's a strong check and balance exists by the council. And so the fact is that I would really have to work to preserve the system, would really have to work with council to make sure that there's a majority on board.
Couldn't you veto that?
No. That is, in fact, Denver did this. Denver City Council did this to Mayor Hancock. They did it on one issue, and that was his ability to appoint a senior level administration officials that are appointees of the mayor without the consent of council. They changed that by a simple referred measure, simple majority, goes straight to the ballot. He doesn't have any veto authority over it or vote on it. And so they passed that, the people passed that. And so Mayor Johnson now has to get consent from the council for all of his senior appointees.
A couple quick things. You said you want all the administration to stay. You want all the administration to stay. Does that include interim police chief Art Acevedo?
Yes.
You talked about why you want the change. We started this conversation about the process of how we got here. Do you not believe the process and the believability, the transparency, the honesty is as important as the message of now to convince voters?
I mean, if I decide not to comment on something until it's an issue, and it's an issue when it makes the ballot, then that's my decision. I don't think that's an issue of transparency. And I think that there are issues that are campaign related in terms of strategy that you don't want to go into details with when you have opposition. But I'm clear that I support this. I'm clear that I was involved at the ground level in putting it together. And I'm clear that I think it's important for this city to make this change.
And that's good enough for voters after they hear for the last few months, you're like, ask me later.
Yes, it is. And the fact is that I get that there's an echo chamber, where people in this building maybe are talking about that, but out there they're not. Out there, they will engage when the issues in front of them. If and when we still don't know. I mean, there's still processes that it has to go through to make the ballot.
Okay, more or less than $10,000.
No. No.
It's like that game. It's like the game on The Price is Right.
Yeah.
The higher, lower, get me in the range.
And there are others that put money in too.
So when I find out next week how much you put in, we're going to sit down again, and I'm going to ask you how come you didn't tell us this amount when we talked a week ago.
Well, I think we're going to start talking about the issue in and of itself, And the issue is whether or not the city of Aurora is ready and willing to make this change, and I think it is.
Thank you for the time.
Thanks, Marshall.